Good afternoon, all. Today's topic is common anti-theft system. So, what is this common anti-theft system? An anti-theft system is an electronic system fitted to motor vehicles to determine criminals from hijacking them. That means it is a safety device which prevents the vehicle to get hijacked, or someone wants to break in the car without the driver's presence. It will alert the driver about the incident. Okay, so the next is these types of systems are becoming more common in newer cars. That means this type of system is very much familiar in modern vehicle technology. Okay, and the new manufacturers are providing this type of facilities in the new vehicles nowadays. And the next is other anti-theft systems are alarms and steering locks. So what are the other anti-theft systems? That are alarms that will produce high sound, which will make aware, or which will aware the driver about the presence of the thief, as well as steering locks. So that means if the thief is somehow able to get into the vehicle, the steering will not work. So you know that without the steering it is impossible to move the vehicle from one place to another. So let us move on. So see, it says that it can also be a part of an alarm or immobilizer system. An approved anti-theft system will achieve a safe, quick shutdown of the vehicle it is attached to. That means uh, approve. That means this anti-theft system will shut down the vehicle very quickly whenever someone wants to get into the vehicle without the presence of the driver. Okay, so next is there are basically three principles on which this system works. The first one is lockout. So it says that a lockout system is armed when the driver turns the ignition key to the on position and carries out a specific action, that is depressing the brake pedal twice. Now see, when the driver is turning on the ignition key and put it to the on position, and when he presses the brake pedal twice, what happens? The all the four doors of the vehicle gets locked automatically. Okay, so a nearby passers-by will not be able to get into the vehicle if he wants to break into the car. Okay, and now see, or wants to hijack the car. The next paragraph, it says that it is activated. That means this lockout is also activated when the vehicle drops below a certain speed or becomes stationary, and will cause all the vehicle doors to automatically lock. Okay, to prevent against any thieves stealing the vehicle when it is stopped. That means suppose a vehicle is running at a speed of 50 and there is a traffic in forward direction. So what happens, the driver will slow down the car. So when the vehicle is running at about 15 to 10 kilometer per hour, at that time what happens, automatically all the doors get locked. Okay, so if to prevent any kind of stealing or thief, this is basically a safety device. For example, someone is turn the ignition key on and keep the vehicle in parking. So what happens, the passers-by might attack the driver and get into the car. So to prevent that, this kind of lockout system is used in modern vehicles. And the next system is transponder. Transponder is a device that is usually attached or connected, one to the car body and the other to the key of the vehicle. Okay, nowadays it is attached to the key. So let's move on. It is a system which is always armed until a device, usually a small RFID transponder, it is a kind of transponder, RFID, enters a vehicle transmitter radius. Since that device is carried by the driver, if the driver leaves the immediate vicinity, that means surrounding some place of the vehicle or the surrounding place, so will the transponder, causing the system to assume the vehicle has been hijacked and disable it. Suppose the driver parked the vehicle and is standing around 10 meter radius, within 10 meter radius, okay, holding the key, and the key and the transponder is connected to each other, just like the remote of a television. We want to change the channel, we operate the remote and the TV changes the channel, just like that. In this condition, the TV becomes the vehicle and the remote becomes the key of the vehicle that the driver holds. Okay, so what happens if someone wants to break into the vehicle when the driver is within the uh, 10 meter radius? So what happens, the key will alert or show some kind of buzzer or red light that someone is trying to damage the vehicle or get into the vehicle. So in this way it alerts the driver about the incident. Okay, so there is one disadvantage of this also. If the driver breaks into the vehicle and drives the car uh, above drives the car out of the 10 meter radius, so what happens, this thing does not work. Now see, as the transponder itself is concealed, the thief would not be aware of such a system is active on a vehicle until they had ejected the driver and moved the vehicle out of the range of the driver. Okay, this is what I have explained earlier. Now the next type is micro switch. So let's see what it says. If the thief switches the ignition to the off position and back to the on position again, the horn will restart and operate constantly and the hazard lights will flash for 60 seconds. That means, suppose the thief hijacked the vehicle and took it uh, in far distance from the driver. So if he switch off the or put down the engine, switches off the engine, so again if he wants to put on the engine, what happens, that time the engine will not restart and it will give a alert signal by the horn will operate and the hazard light will operate for 60 seconds. Now see what happens, the hazard lights will continue to flash on every attempt. That means if the vehicle will not be able to start, the starter motor will not be able to start the engine, so what happens, the vehicle will the thief will try one or more times to start the vehicle. At that time what happens, the vehicle will cause the horn to operate for 30 seconds and the hazard light will continue to flash and will alert the nearby passers-by that this vehicle has been has been stolen. So the vehicle will not start and the hazard lights will keep on flashing until the driver's battery is drained or to the system is disarmed. This thing continues till the battery has been discharged. Our next topic is automatic door lock system. See, it is designed to improve vehicle security and accessibility. Okay. With the use of wireless technology, vehicle owners are able to enter as well as protect their automobiles with more passive involvement. That means this automatic door lock system is designed to improve the security system of the vehicle, and this is basically a wireless system which makes our life very comfortable. Okay. So next paragraph says, originally vehicles were accessed and secured manually by inserting a key into a lock. So in previous vehicle we all see that the vehicles that the vintage car actually, we use a car and we put that key in the car door and unlock or lock the car. So nowadays we do the whole thing with the help of the key. There is a transmitter in the key, and that locks and unlocks the car door. The next says, more recently, a keyless entry system was created which allowed the owner to lock and unlock their vehicle with the touch of a button. Communication between the owner and the vehicle was established using wireless technology. There is a transmitter and there is a receiver. The transmitter is the key that the driver holds, and the receiver is inside the car, and it receives the signal and unlocks and locks the door as per the requirement of the driver. Next is, wireless communication expands upon past technology. It is able to grant access and security without pushing a button. For this new technology to work, the vehicle's internal computer must be utilized in conjunction with sensors that are detected to owner's presence as well as the status of the lock. That means there is a ECU within the car that operates and tells the driver whether the door is locked or not, and also confirms that whether the driver is inside the car as well as outside the car also. Now let us explain this block diagram of automatic door, how this system works. You see, there is an encoder and there is a transmitter. The transmitter sends the encoder generates the code, and this code is been sent to the transmitter. This transmitter is again transferring the codes to the receiver. The receiver receives the codes that encoder provides, and it forwards the code to the decoder. The decoder decodes the code and read it and forward it to the FPGA. This basically works as a ECU. Okay, and this is forwarding the feedback to the logic circuit, and the logic circuit is also receiving the signal from this motion sensor and door lock sensor. Okay, this two is forwarding the signal to this H bridge. H bridge is something that it controls the operation of the motor that opens or locks the door. Okay, and there is a motor, and this according to the feedback it locks and unlocks the door. Okay, now see, first is vehicle lock sensor. That means this sensor. So what does this do? These sensors are sensors to detect whether door is currently locked or unlocked. So these sensors detect whether the door is currently locked or unlocked. This information will be provided to the logic circuit, okay, to determine whether the door motor should be operation in not should be in operation or not. That means either the motor will run in clockwise direction or anti-clockwise direction. Okay, clockwise direction, let's suppose clockwise direction opens the door, and counterclockwise direction closes the door or locks the door. Okay, and next see the description of motion sensor. For the description of motion sensor, it is to detect whether the vehicle owner is inside the car or not. Okay, it provides a signal to a logic circuit and also receiver to power down the system. Okay, so motion sensor usually detects whether the driver or any passenger is inside the vehicle or not. Then comes encoder. I have said this earlier. This device feeds a data string of logic 1 and 0 binary digit to the transmitter. Okay, so what does this transmitter do? This transmitter, it is a sensor and transmit the codes to the receiver. Okay, so receiver is that sensor which receives the code from the transmitter and sends to the decoder. The decoder decodes the data, that is this binary digit 0 and 1, from the receiver and sends it to the FPGA. Okay, this FPGA. So what is this FPGA? FPGA is a microcontroller which utilizes data from decoder to control operation of lock and unlock motor. So this thing whole is the motherboard. So this is the motherboard. This actually operates or sends the signal whether the door will be locked or unlocked. This unit would be a part of the internal computer that most modern vehicles already process, that is the ECU of the vehicle. The next is, let's say this is the logic circuit, and one sensor is coming from here and the other sensor is coming from this is receives all the signal from this feedback, and from this feedback, and it will feed this H bridge, which is basically a circuit that controls the operation of the motor depending on the inputs. That means these are all inputs. These are all input to the logic circuit, and it is telling this H bridge whether to operate or not. And the last one is unlock and lock motor. So explanation of this is, it is a DC powered motor that can spin in two directions. That I have said this, clockwise and anti-clockwise direction. The motor will spin in one direction to stimulate the vehicle doors locking, and the other direction to stimulate the vehicle's door unlocking. That is, one direction is for locking the door and the other direction is for unlocking the door. So this is the simple block explanation of simple block diagram of automatic door in a modern vehicle. Thank you.